Hey folks, this is Winston again. I'm sorry I haven't made a video in a while. I've been really busy and just haven't had the time. But there are a lot of things I want to talk about that's been on my mind the last few years and that have been bubbling up in me and just burning up inside. The first thing I want to talk about is there was a very big change or transition in the mid-1980s, around maybe 1985 or so, that nobody seems to ever talk about, ever. Not in the mainstream media, not in the alternative media. And I just thought that if this is huge, but no one talks about it, I might as well be the first one or whatever, at least no one that I know of. I mean, a lot of people know about it. It's just one of those things you just don't talk about because it's just, I don't know, it's just crossing the line. It's just taboo. And I don't know why exactly that is, but I can speculate. And what I'm talking about is that in about the mid-1980s, America became a lot more less sociable. It became less and less normal to talk to strangers or talk to your neighbors. So the social and human connection started to deteriorate big time. Because I don't know how old you guys are. I mean, if some of you were around in the 1970s or early 80s, you might remember that it was a lot easier to talk to people, to connect with people, to make friends, because the social interaction was just a lot more normal. It wasn't as cliquish or pretentious. It just is, and you can sort of see from the films of that era too that people were just more natural and down to earth. Like if you watch the movies or TV shows of the 1970s, you can sort of see that. And if you talk to people, I mean, if you're too young to remember that, if you talk to people that were around back then, they'll tell you that too, that it was a lot easier to make friends. And it was just it wasn't complicated. Okay, I mean, it was just simple and natural, kind of like what you see in the movies. You know how you watch a movie or something, and when the characters make friends, it just seems so easy and natural, like it just happens. And it still does happen like that in some countries, but just not America as much, especially not on the West Coast, like in California or the Seattle area. Definitely not. I don't think anyone would deny that, because those cultures are just very, very cliquish. People just don't talk to strangers unless it's business related. And when I say to ask people that are around back then, I meant you got to ask people that are free thinkers, that are not afraid to be brutally honest and upfront and just tell it like it is. Okay, you shouldn't ask people that are trying to be trendy and conform to trends or political correctness. Those type of people will never admit the truth because they only will say whatever is trendy and popular and cool. Those aren't truth seekers, and they're not that honest. They just say whatever is trendy and politically correct. Those aren't the people that I would suggest you ask about this kind of thing, because they're just going to deny it because it's not trendy or cool to talk about this kind of thing. So you got to ask somebody who's very honest and blunt and loves the truth and is somewhat of a free thinker and not afraid to tell it like it is. A spade is a spade, and not try to conform to political correctness or trendiness. Okay. And so if you can find that type and is very aware too, then they'll tell you this, that prior to the early 1980s, it was easy and natural to make friends, to meet people. You didn't have to be like part of a clique as much. And yeah, beginning like in the mid 1980s, then all of a sudden people began to be very pretentious and cliquish. And when I say cliquish, I meant that you basically break into a closed, exclusive group, and then you're only allowed to socialize within that group. So you don't socialize with outsiders or strangers or new people. You find a clique, and then you limit all your social interactions within that clique. So you become very exclusive and you're just closed to new people. And if you've never left like the West Coast, America, or Northeast Asia, you might think that the whole world is like that. And if so, I feel really sad for you because most of the world is not like that. Like if you go to some friendlier parts of America, like New Mexico or something, or Texas, or I don't know, or depends on the person, or Utah. It depends on the person, but some places, are friendlier than others, where people will still make small talk with you, especially like in small towns or rural areas. Once you get out of the big city, people are more interested in making eye contact and making small talk and more relaxed. You'll notice that within America too, but especially abroad. You'll notice that in most foreign countries, as long as you avoid Northeast Asia, though. When I say Northeast Asia, I mean like the block of countries, like with Hong Kong and Japan and Taiwan and Korea and Singapore. That Northeast Asian area, I mean, that is also going to be very cliquish. So as long as you avoid North America and Northeast Asia, I mean, you'll see a totally different world where people are just very, very open to talking to strangers, just like they were in the 70s and the 60s. Now, I want to say one thing. I mean, even back in the 1970s, America was not as like sociable as like Europe or Latin America, for example. It was never that sociable. Okay, even in the past, America was always slightly less sociable than Europeans. And the reason is because American culture has this long-standing tradition of being independent and individualistic and not needing other people. Okay. So that's always been a part of American tradition. And when people come to America, they come to be independent, not dependent. They don't come seeking social connection or being interconnected with other people. They're trying to be independent, to make money, to find opportunity. So they've always had that mindset, the people that come to America. So America has never had the social connection of most other countries, like in Europe or China or South America or Mexico or whatever. I mean, you get the point. Anyone that travels the world knows this, okay? Especially if they're super honest and aware and a truth seeker or a free thinker. They'll tell you that in other countries, yeah, you do have this social connection and inclusiveness that you don't get in America, okay? So what I'm saying is, even when America was more inclusive than it was today, like in before the early 1980s, it still was never as sociable as, say, Europe or something or other parts. Because America has that long-standing tradition of being very independent. So I wanted to make that factor. I wanted to point out that factor as well. And also, when I say 1985, okay, that's just a general estimate, okay? I've talked to other people about this, and not everyone agrees it was 1985. Some people think the turning point when Americans became less and less sociable and open was maybe 1990, or some even say 1995. So people don't all have the same opinion about when this big transition or change occurred. But yeah, I would say it's around the range of between 1985 and 1990, maybe. And it wasn't an instantaneous transition. It was kind of gradual. You definitely could feel it, because America just became a lot more isolating, and people became more picky about who they made friends with. You know, it became more competitive and all about your image, and you know, it just wasn't down to earth. And you can see this in the movies of the 1980s. For example, if you watch those high school dramas from the 1980s, like Pretty in Pink with Molly Ringwald, or 16 Candles starring Molly Ringwald, you'll see that the teenagers, or the actors in those movies acted very, very shallow and pretentious. They weren't down to earth or anything, so they were much harder to get along with. And because people who are shallow and pretentious are not open, they are gonna form cliques. And if you're not cool enough to be in their clique, they don't want to talk to you. They look down on you. So that, to me, that's just not friendly. And in real life, high school was like that. But the thing is, if you watch the movies of the 1970s, you don't see that. You don't have these teenage dramas in the 1970s where people act very pretentious and cliquish like that. They act much more down to earth. You can see that in the music videos of the 1970s too. That there was no pretentiousness or shallowness. People were more normal. So they acted a lot more natural. They didn't act insecure. But all of a sudden in the 80s, people started acting more insecure. You know what I mean? If you grew up at that time, you sort of know what I'm talking about. Like in the 80s, everyone was very insecure about themselves. And so they constantly had to brag and act tough and flaunt a big ego in order to try to overcompensate for that. Whereas in the previous decade, in the 70s, it's like you didn't have to do that. People just liked you for you. And if you were creative or eccentric, then you were considered cool. Okay? Even if you were a nerd, you were considered cool. I mean, there wasn't a negative stigma toward being, nerdy or watching Star Trek or something like that. That negative stigma about being a nerd or a geek, that really started in the 1980s, okay? Along with the pretentiousness, the shallowness, the cliquishness, and the insecurity that nobody likes you for you, so you've got to try to act tough and have a big ego. And you're even told this in America a lot. I mean, at some point, if you grew up in America, at some point, you will have heard someone give you this tough talk speech like, "This is a cold, cruel world. Nobody's going to take care of you except you, so you've got to rely on yourself because no one cares about you. You're all you've got. You got to rely on yourself because no one's gonna take care of you." Especially if you grew up like in New York or California, you're gonna hear that kind of tough talk. The thing is, that kind of talk is not common in other countries. You don't usually hear that. That's really an American thing. So don't buy into this fallacy that everything that you hear in America applies to the whole world. That's a very, very big fallacy that everyone makes in America. They think whatever problem you have in America or challenge or obstacle, it's the same as the whole world because America equals the world. And that is just not true. If you grew up in a different country, you'll know what I mean. I mean, you don't get that type of tough talk because in other countries, people have real friends and they can depend on each other. And also in America, you also have this concept where, you gotta love yourself because, it's like no one's gonna really love you, so you gotta love yourself first. And it doesn't really make any sense because, I mean, to love someone, there has to be a second person. You can't just love yourself. I mean, that's like trying to kiss yourself. The Eastern spirituality teacher, Alan Watts, even said that. He's like one of the few people that agree with me that you can't love yourself because it's like trying to kiss yourself. There has to be another person. So that doesn't make sense, and it's pretty sad and pitiful because the people that tell you to love yourself they're basically saying that in America, nobody is going to love you for you. So basically, you have to love yourself because nobody else loves you. And that's a very sad thing to say. I mean, and I don't know when those type of cliches started. They might have started in the 1980s or something, or before that, I don't know. But everyone that's grown up in America, especially in a big city, has heard all that tough talk. And the thing is, those are unique to America because in other countries, people don't think like that. Okay, so America seriously lacks social connection. There's like, it feels awkward to even try to meet people. It's like everyone wants to be left alone. There's like a cold ice wall between strangers, and people don't talk to strangers usually unless it's for business related. And this is sort of an unspoken rule. When you're out in public in America, you sort of know this. It's obvious from the body language and the behavior of everyone around you that, you're supposed to keep to yourself and leave other people alone and don't bother other people. There's like this tension between people that that separates them. This psychological barrier. It's like a wall of ice. But the thing is, unless you travel the world or have lived in other countries, you think that's natural, and that's how everybody is. Everyone is isolated in a bubble and wants to be left alone, and no matter how lonely you are, you're not supposed to bother other people because you should have your own friends or cliques and just never talk to strangers unless it's for business or something. But that's not true because once you travel to different countries outside North America or Northeast Asia, you'll see that most countries are not like that. They're very inclusive. You can talk to strangers. You can have interesting conversations. You can make new friends. And it's just like in the movies, I swear to God. If you look at my website, happierabroad.com, you'll see a lot of proof in videos and photos that in other countries, meeting people is just like you see in the movies. It's super easy and natural. I swear I've experienced it thousands of times, so I can swear to you and tell you that. But nobody talks about this. Because in the mainstream media, for example, all they want to talk about is something useless like racial equality or something, which they blab on and on about for no end. But I think that it's useless to talk about that because you can't change a race. And if somebody wants to be racist, lecturing them about racial equality is not going to change their minds. And you're never going to have people all pretend to be colorblind. People are always going to discriminate based on looks or race or colors, and that's just the way the world is. Okay. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's overt, but that's just human nature. People don't see everyone as the same. They see people as different, and they're always going to differentiate people. And lecturing people all day about racial equality accomplishes nothing. So the U.S. media is just wasting millions of dollars of airtime every day, and I think it's just really stupid and moronic. They need to focus on things that you can change, something practical that is within your power to change, and something that's achievable. Racial equality is not something achievable, and it's not even a goal that's natural or normal. It's just, I don't know, it seems like it's just Marxist communist ideology being thrust at people. Okay, I'm not saying that racism is a good thing, but I mean, lecturing people about it all day doesn't accomplish anything. It's a waste of time. Why don't you talk about something real and achievable? And then with the alternative media, you have this you have this obsession that the government is getting tyrannical and about to take away all your freedoms and rights, and they're coming for your guns and taking away your freedoms and your sovereignty, and then America is no longer going to be a free country. This boogeyman. Okay. Now I am a truther, and I agree with some of that. Okay, but it's way exaggerated. Okay, and again, talking about conspiracies isn't going to change anything. It's not something you can do anything about. All you can do is let the bad guys get their karma eventually. Okay, if the government is involved in a conspiracy by the deep state or something, I mean, you can't do anything about that. It's out of your hands. So why talk about it all day? Why don't you talk about something that can be changed? For example, moving to a different country or state or culture that has friendlier people that make you feel better, make you feel more confident and cheerful with less social anxiety. That's something you can do. I mean, moving or traveling, buying a plane ticket to change your location is something possible. It's something practical. It's something you can change. Okay, you move to a location that you fit into better, that is more friendly to you, that gives you what you want, that gives you better vibes, And I'm not saying this is for everyone. I mean, some people are happy in America and do have a lot of friends and a good social clique. So this isn't, I'm not speaking for everybody, okay? But I'm just saying that this is an option for some people, and it fits some people's path, though not everyone. But this is never talked about, okay? Never. The mainstream media doesn't talk about it. The alternative media doesn't talk about it. And you got to wonder why. Especially this big change in America in the mid-1980s, I think, where it just became taboo to talk to strangers, and it became a lot harder to make friends. And all of a sudden, society became very isolating with no human connection. And then people began having fewer and fewer friends, and people began being pickier about who they spend time with. A lot pickier. And it's only gotten worse from 1985 till today. Worse and worse and worse. I don't see how much worse it can get. And it's really sad. But now, as to why nobody ever talks about this, that's something I've wondered about for years. And I guess it's sort of a taboo because in American culture, you're not supposed to say that people are not open or they're too closed or cliquish or not friendly. it's just kind of a taboo because there's this expectation in American culture that if you're lonely and you can't make friends or find a girlfriend or a boyfriend, there's kind of this expectation that you're supposed to only blame yourself. For example, you're allowed to say, "Oh, I'm too shy and introverted to meet people. So, that's why I don't have a lot of friends. I'm just really shy and introverted." You're allowed to say that because that pins the blame on you. Or you're allowed to say, "Oh, I work too much. I just don't have time to meet people or find a girl or something." That's a very polite answer, too, that's commonly given that will be broadcast in the media. Because that, again, is blaming yourself. You're saying you have to work a lot, and so your job is what takes up your time, and so you can't just go out there and meet people. It presupposes, of course, that if you had the time or you weren't shy, that if you were just went outside and became very outgoing, that, you would have a lot of friends, just like you see in the movies. So easy, it would come so naturally, blah, blah, blah. And of course, we know that's not true, at least not for most people, I don't think. Some people do have a lot of good luck in finding a social clique easily or making friends easily. Some people do get lucky with that, and nobody knows why, but some people just don't either. And it's not because those people that are luckier are more attractive always. Sometimes they're just average looking. And it's not because they have better social skills or communication skills. No, they're just average people having different experiences. So there's not a logical thing you can pinpoint. Like I could be the most outgoing person in the world, very sociable with strangers, but if nobody wants to talk to me or allow me into their social clique, then it's useless. I'm out of luck. It doesn't matter how outgoing I am. Okay, if people aren't interested, that's out of your control. Okay, and for a lot of people, that's the case. Okay, so it's not true, this presupposition that if you had the time and you were outgoing and you went out there, then, making friends would come naturally, just like in the movies. Hell no. No way. Hell no. I don't see why there's that presupposition. I guess maybe, maybe there's just this loser stigma attached to it. If you say the stuff that I'm saying, there's kind of a loser stigma. Because if I don't blame myself and I just say, it's not my fault because I'm outgoing, but people are not open to talking to strangers, they're very closed. And even my neighbors don't want to talk to me or make friends or invite me over for a barbecue or whatever. Because people are just not open to talking to strangers anymore, and there's an ice wall, an ice barrier between people. And people in America, you don't talk to strangers unless it's business related. Okay, even though those things are true, you are not allowed to say those things for some reason. Again, even if it's totally true what I say that about you not being allowed to talk to strangers in America, okay, about people being closed off or cliquish or whatever, you're just not allowed to talk about that, okay, no matter how true it is. And I don't know why that is, but that is just an unspoken rule. And nobody dares to violate it. And it just pisses me off how you just have to suppress that and you can't be honest and tell it like it is. And nobody dares to violate this unspoken rule. People might talk about it in private conversations sometimes, but no one's going to put up a YouTube video and talk about it. Or talk about it in alternative media, or definitely not on the mainstream media, of course. But even in independent alternative media, nobody talks about it because it's just, I don't know, it's just so far. Nobody does it. It's just so far out of the line. But it's, the thing is, it's not like this is rocket science or something. I mean, it's not like this is quantum physics or something complicated. I mean, this is something, the stuff I'm talking about is very simple. It's just basic logic. So it shouldn't be out of the intelligence range of the average person to see, yet nobody talks about it. You don't see anyone in alternative media, none of the figures, the smart people like Jordan Peterson or something or whatever. None of these independent media people or independent philosophers like Stefan Molyneux or Jordan Peterson or whatever, blah, blah, blah. None of them will touch this. Not even people in the truth movement like Alex Jones or David Icke. All they're going to talk about is government tyranny and conspiracies. They won't touch this subject of the lack of social connection in America. Okay, and they definitely won't say that in other countries people are more open to talking to strangers. They won't draw that. Even if they talk about social isolation in America, nobody's going to draw a comparison and say it's a lot better overseas. No way. That is way crossing the line, mega. I mean, that's like crossing several lines. You just don't go there. So this is like 1,000% taboo. And I don't know why I'm the only one that has the guts to talk about it. Because no one dares, okay? No one. You can watch all the TED Talks that you want, and nobody will touch this. None of these leading edge, cutting edge thinkers on TED Talk is going to talk about this. Now, there are a few psychologists on TED Talk that talk about social isolation in America, like Lisa Rankin or something. But she has no solutions, like I do. She's not going to say, if you go abroad, even to Mexico, you'll find a lot more social connection. You'll feel a lot less isolated. People will be a lot more warm and natural. And there'll be this instant familiarity between strangers. You can talk to people just like you already know them, which is how the world has been for thousands of years, okay? Before modern industrial society, people were not isolated like this. It's not natural, okay? This is a problem in the modern world, especially modern America. So social isolation and being in a bubble is not natural, okay? Nobody in medieval Europe or ancient Rome was like that, okay, or the Renaissance or whatever. It's a disease of modern culture. It was not like that for thousands of years. And if you go abroad, you can still find people that are naturally friendly and sociable without this cliquishness, that you have in North America or Northeast Asia. But so even in TED Talks, like Lisa Rankin, she may talk about social isolation and how people are more lonely today than ever before. But no way in hell is she going to mention that if you go abroad, even to Mexico, that it'll be different. No way. That's untouchable. If someone on TED Talk were to talk about that or draw that comparison, they'd probably be censored and banned, and it'd probably be edited out, I'll bet. Because I've had interviews in the past that were censored out and edited out when I talked about this because it's just way, way taboo. Okay, it's many lines across. You just don't go there. I don't know why, okay, but I just swear, you just don't go there. Nobody dares it to do. Nobody. No way. You won't find one person on TED Talk that's going to go there, okay? And if I were to do a TED Talk and I talked about this, I'd probably get censored out too and edited out or even banned. If they'll ban somebody like Graham Hancock for talking about ayahuasca or psychedelics. They'll definitely ban this. I mean, this is way more taboo than that, than talking about psychedelics or something, or ayahuasca or something like that. No way. There's no comparison. So I don't know basically why it's a taboo to talk about this. Okay, I just know that it is, and it's an unspoken rule, and the proof of that is that nobody dares to talk about it. Okay. If you talk to people that travel the world, they will talk to you about it privately sometimes. But yeah, no one's going to put a YouTube video about this or talk about it in alternative media, even if it's totally independent media. It's just something you never publicly dare talk about. I don't know why, but that's just the unspoken rule. I guess there's some type of negative stigma or loser status you will incur if you talk about this, because it's just a taboo to say that people are unfriendly or not open. You're kind of expected. There's kind of a social rule or a political correctness that requires you to always say that people here are very friendly. It's you just have to say that everywhere you go. It doesn't matter where you go. Even if you're in New York or California, you just have to say people here are very friendly, very wonderful. There's some type of social rule that says that it's politically correct, it's polite, it's positive, and you're expected to say that. And so everyone conforms to, because nobody wants to be rude, and so it's polite to say that. But we know that's not true, because some places are not warm and friendly and open. Okay, West Coast USA definitely is not, and neither is Northeast Asia. There are some parts of America, like I said, that are friendlier than others, like some small towns or rural areas, especially the red states or Republican states that are conservative. For some reason, they tend to be more down to earth towards strangers. I don't know why. That's just my experience. That red states are friendlier than blue states. But yeah, I just thought that. Geez, I'm sorry I didn't mean to go this long, but I just thought that since nobody else is willing to talk about this, that I should, because somebody's going to talk about this. I mean, I think it's something important, because this is a very big change that happened in America at somewhere between 1985 and 1990, maybe, somewhere around that. And since nobody has the guts to talk about it, not even on YouTube, not even in the truth movement, not even independent philosophers on YouTube have the guts to talk about this, then somebody should. It might as well be me. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is God's calling for me to talk about this. Maybe the universe wants me. Maybe the universe has appointed me to do this. Maybe like the Force in Star Wars or something wants me to do this or something. I don't know, but I just feel like it's my calling to talk about this, since nobody else will. So, if I'm going to make a video, I want to talk about something interesting and new that nobody else is talking about. Because if I just say the same thing everyone else says on YouTube, I mean, what's the point? I'd be boring. There's no point. There'd be no point to listen to me if I just repeat what everyone else says on YouTube. So I gotta come up with something unique. Otherwise, why listen to me? I mean, it's not like I'm some hot chick or something, or beautiful girl, that can attract people with just my face or image or something. If you're an attractive girl, you don't have to talk about anything interesting. You can just show your face and talk about anything. You can be an airhead even and get a lot of viewers and subscribers. Okay, that's one of their advantages, but, I don't have that, so I gotta talk about something interesting and unique. And talking about a taboo like this that nobody will dare violate is, I guess, I guess it's something that is worth my time to talk about, and the effort to put this on YouTube, especially since I think this is an important topic because it involves a huge fundamental change in America in the mid-1980s that has affected the social culture and social life of America to a great deal. You know, and I lived through the 80s, so I've lived through the 1980s, so I've seen this with my own eyes and my own experience. I've seen this transition occur, and a lot of my friends have too. So I know it's real. I've seen it. I've experienced it, and it's huge. It's affected the social life and social connection of America, and I think a lot of people can feel it too, even though they don't want to talk about it or can't put it into words. Okay, a lot of these things people feel, but they're afraid to talk about it, or they can't find the words to talk about it too. That also happens too. So, so I think that's another factor about why people don't talk about this. But it's a very, very big negative change, and I think if this is ever going to change in America, that somebody should talk about it and bring attention to it first. Okay, if you don't identify the problem and bring attention to it, I mean, it'll never change. It'll just be ignored. You know, the first step in solving any problem is to identify it first, to make it aware, to make it conscious, not to suppress it or pretend it's not there. So I think it's important to talk about this for that purpose too, so we can work on a solution, whether it's changing something in America or just moving overseas, which is a lot easier, of course. But that never gets talked about either because it's taboo too. Nobody dares. So I think all these options should be put on the table and discussed. This shouldn't be a taboo. I mean, this is not something that should be taboo. It's something simple, and it's not rocket science. It's something simple. So why not put it on the table and discuss it? Why is no one doing it? So I guess I got to do it then. Anyways, if you've listened to this rant this long, thank you. And if you think this is an important topic, please feel free to forward this or share this video with other people. So maybe they can discuss it or talk about it or bring attention to it. And you can also visit my website where I talk about this kind of stuff and a lot more. The address is www.happierabroad.com. Again, that's www.happier, HAPPIER, abroad.com. And I'll put a link to it in the description box below so you can see it and just click on it later and check it out when you have the time. And over on my website, I talk about this and a lot of other taboo topics nobody will touch. And we also have a very big discussion forum where you can register and participate and talk to other people about this kind of stuff too. So if you have the time or interest, I welcome you to check it out. And thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you guys next time. So take care, and God bless.